Hey guys, I wanted to start taking some of my videos in a little bit different direction, so instead of always just sitting at a table talking about a piece of tech, I thought in this case I could kind of have the free cam going here and show you some stuff that I've been working on. If you guys have seen some of my earlier videos, you know that I do some of the DIY type of things with speakers, so I've tried a little bit with building my own boxes and stuff like that. Since I was a teenager, I've played with subwoofers in the trunk and whatnot. I kind of fell out of that for years and then got back into it kind of recently, and so that plays into the JBL Sub 550p, which is a kind of a retail home theater type sub. I had blogged about this, but I'd never talked about it on the YouTube channel until now. So in short, I ordered that sub to use in my office with my computer for games and stuff, and I had some issues with the built-in amp that was on the back of it not working right, and I contacted support, and they basically took so long to get back to me to try to resolve it that I had decided to just make it into a DIY project myself, and by the time they actually got back to me, I had ripped apart the back and couldn't actually send it back. So what I basically did with it, since I determined through a whole bunch of trial and error that it was the plate amp on the back of it that was having a grounding issue and was causing a lot of buzzing sounds, but the box and the subwoofer themselves were fine, I thought, all right, well, what if I just take the plate amp off and I cut, the right size piece of wood on the back of it. I could install speaker terminals and I could power it myself with other amps that I have in the house. I did that at first. I tried it. It sounded okay, but it didn't have as much like really low end as I was looking for. And then I thought, well, since I installed my own back panel onto it, I could put a hole in that and port it. And while the box volume really was made for a sealed design, and so ideally you would want a bit bigger box volume for ported, I thought, what the hey, let me just try it, see what happens, because this is a sub that otherwise was going to end up in the garbage anyway, so let's try it. That made a really nice difference, actually. It would have been better to go with a 3-inch port, but basically the way port volume calculations work, to go at a certain frequency, the wider the port you want to use, the longer that it has to be, and there just wasn't enough internal length before hitting the back of the speaker for me to go 3-inch, so I went 2-inch. There is occasional issues with shuffing when you get down to the really low frequencies, but otherwise, I think it really brings out the really deep frequencies of that sub well. I used it in the office for a while, and then most recently I decided, because I wanted to save some trunk space, I wanted to put it in my car just to see what would happen, since I have made it so it can be passively driven. So real quick, all right, I'll ask you to pardon my really crowded garage here. We kind of did the opposite of spring cleaning this year, where we collected a lot of crap, and it's so full right now I can't really work on any of my DIY projects. But anyway, this is the custom box that I had built that was in my trunk of the car. I had an old Infinity Kappa sub that I got from my car a little over 10 years ago, and then when I fell out of trying to do stuff in my trunk, it's basically just been sitting in a closet for a lot of years. So I finally was able to actually use it in the trunk. This is a little over 2 cubic foot, I think it's about 2.5 cubic feet box that I made, 3-inch port, tuned for about 28 hertz. I like the real deep bass. This sounds great in the trunk, but this box, I drive a Camry, and so this box was kind of big. It definitely makes the trunk focused on being for sound and not really for storage. And when we went on a beach trip recently, it really impressed upon me how the extra space would have been helpful. And so I decided, well, hey, I've got a smaller 10-inch sub. Let's see, what that's like in the trunk. All right, so this might look kind of funny to some of you guys. I don't know how many of you have ever tried using a home sub in your car, but it actually has worked out really great. So as you can see, I have mounted my amp onto the side of the box, pretty similar to how I had done with the other box. And then, I'll sneak around this way. So you can see the custom backplate that I created on the back. It's about 1.5 inch overlap of where the hole on the back of it was, and I was able to put my own port onto it, installed my own speaker terminal so that it can be driven the way that a normal car sub would off of this amp. It sounds great, and it's a lot smaller in terms of trunk space that it takes up than what I had before. That box that I was showing you in the garage pretty much came almost all the way across back here and stuck out almost just as far from this back area. So I freed up a lot of space back here by doing this. I don't know if I'll end up keeping it long term, but as far as like fun playing around DIY kind of stuff, I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. It's a really well built box. That's part of why I wanted to keep it in this box instead of just building a new box myself. It's 1-inch thick medium density fiberboard. It's really well internally braced. It's a very dead box in terms of vibration, and I think that helps this woofer a lot in terms of its clarity and its ability to play down into the really deep frequencies, helped even more by that port that I put on the back. But when I had done some research about the buzzing issues I was having with the amp that came with this, what I learned is that's apparently a known issue. A lot of people have experienced that and had to send it back. And so since that's a known issue, I figured I'd put this video out there in case any of you happen to have this and are having that buzzing issue. If this is helpful for you for ideas, I've had some good success, like I said, with taking that amp off the back of it and doing my own thing. Simple ways, you can get your own plate amp and install it on the back. What I did was use a Crown XLS, I think it's the 1001 model. It's actually kind of meant as a DJ amp, but it has bridged mode and it has its own crossovers on the inside, so it actually makes a really good subwoofer amp in the house. And in bridged mode on, I think it's 4 ohms, it has over 1,000 watts of power. And so I drove this out of that for a while to great success in my office. It was great for games and stuff, but for right now I'm playing with it in the car. It plays just as deep as that big Infinity that I had in the garage. And so this has been kind of a fun project just to play around with and do some DIY stuff. Let me know if you guys like this kind of content. If you think it's cool to talk about some of the DIY projects that I've been playing with, I'd be happy to do more content like this in addition to the product reviews that I've been doing.